Hello my lovelies, cooking dinner. Tonight I'm making Burracos. That's half burrito, half taco. And yes, I invented it long before Taco Bell, probably 15 years ago. I started making these. We just prefer them this way, and so this is the way we always make them. And when Taco Bell came out with their commercials for Burracos, me and my son had a real good laugh. Anyway, this is how I do it. So first I start by cooking my onions, and I've got them cooking here medium-high heat. Added a little bit of water, and I'm going to wait till they're nice and translucent. I've got some actual flour tortillas over here cooking, and let me turn that down a little bit so I don't talk too much and get them a little too crispy. Now, I don't live in an area where I can get flour tortillas without oil. And Mary McDougall says do the best that you can. If you cannot find them in your area, just look for the one that has the least amount. So when you're reading the ingredient list, look for the one that has oil or shortening the farthest down on the list. And if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. Now, if you absolutely do not want flour tortillas, you can make these with corn and just fold them up like a taco. They're still going to have the same fillings in them. That's what I generally do for myself, is I make a corn tortilla and then I give the flour tortillas to my family. Tonight, I will probably just eat the flour tortilla because I only have one, and it's one tortilla. We don't have these very often. You guys cook with me generally most nights, and so you see how we eat. Generally, it's one big pot, and that's just how I cook. But once in a while, we like something like this. So I'm going to turn those off so I don't get carried away. And what I do is I do this the old-fashioned way, just like my granny taught me. I take a nice linen towel, and I put them inside, and that keeps them warm until I'm ready for them. Now, what I've got going on here is I have some tofu. Now, as I said before, in case you guys missed it, freeze the tofu, defrost it, drain all the water out, and then crumble it. Freezing it first makes the texture better. And this is just an extra firm tofu, and I've crumbled it up so you can see the consistency. And you know I don't really like tofu very much, but I'm going to use it in this recipe. And I'm putting it in here with the onions, and I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of water. See how I always just keep water in my kettle on the stove? That's just so I can add water whenever I need it to keep stuff from sticking. I've got the dial turned up to 5, which is a little bit higher. It's kind of medium-high instead of medium. And that's just for the video. I want things to go a little quicker so that you don't lose interest. We wouldn't want you to lose interest. So I'm just going to cook this up, and I'm going to add Mexican spices like a taco seasoning. And all that's in taco seasoning is, we start with ground cumin and just sprinkle it over the top. You see what I'm doing. Don't worry about measuring. Bit of paprika. And get the lid open. Some chili powder. And then how hot you want it is how much you add. If you like it a little more spicy, add a little more. I'm going to give this a stir before I start sticking, and then we'll put the rest of the spices in. See how that already kind of resembles a hamburger meat, and that's kind of what I'm going for there. To have it look like a hamburger meat. I'm going to put some garlic powder. Some Italian seasoning. Now, normally that would just be Mexican oregano, but this is what I found in the cupboard first, so that's what I grabbed. So if you're doing this at home and you don't want to use the full Italian seasoning, it would be Mexican oregano. And then I've got some onion powder. And then if you've got cilantro at home and you like cilantro, go ahead and add some of that in as well. Can you see how nice that looks? Kind of resembles a hamburger meat. Now what I'm going to add to this, and I know you can't see very well, I'm going to scrape all this to one side of my pan so that when I add my beans on, they'll go on this other side. That way I can squash them without having that tofu in the way. Now I've got one of my mason jars full of black beans. You can use pinto as well. And if you'll remember, I cooked these with stewed tomatoes. And I don't always do that, but sometimes it's nice just to have a change. And then if you don't have any that you cooked up yourself, go ahead and just add 1 or 2 jars, depending on how big your family is. And I'm feeding 2 grown men here. And then just mash them up good. Now, what do we add into this to make it a burraco instead of a burrito? Well, normally you would add lettuce, tomato, cheese, right? Maybe a bit of onions. Well, I put the onions inside so that they're cooked, so we don't have to worry about onion. I've got my tomatoes chopped up, and I will pull you around here so that you can see a little better. Sorry about the glare. So I've got tomatoes, got avocado, and this is actually cabbage. It looks like lettuce, and you could use lettuce if you want, but this is actually shredded cabbage. And I use what I've got on hand, and there's nothing wrong with using cabbage instead of lettuce. I actually prefer it, but you use what you like. Like I said, I don't run to the store and say, oh, I want to make this and let me go get these ingredients. I look in the fridge and see what I've got, and that's what I pull out and when I cook. I don't plan ahead. Because I got things to do. I can't be bothered. And I know you guys are busy too. And I'd say just about any night of the week, you guys can find one of my videos on there and see that you've got those ingredients if your kitchen is well stocked like mine is. Now I've given those a good mash. And then I'm just going to stir the tofu and the beans together. And what that will resemble is if we had ground some beef and then added beans and mixed it all together like a burrito filling. Now you can make the cheese sauce that we made for the pizza, and I'll link that to the end of the video in case you want to do that. That's really good on these as well. But tonight, I'm just going to use the faux Parmesan. I'll link that recipe too. That way you can have your choice if you want the cheese sauce or the faux Parmesan. And I'm just going to put the faux Parmesan. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this and sprinkle it right in. And that will give it a nice cheesy flavor. Now, if you want to do the cheese sauce instead, what you would do is when you're creating each individual burraco, you would open your tortilla, put your bean mixture, put a little bit of that cheese sauce, and then, of course, your fresh veggies. And that, my friends, is done. So hold on one second. Let's grab a plate, and I'll show you how this plates up. And I did get my tortillas just a little bit too crunchy, and I apologize for that. But you'll get the general idea. So you just put your beans in the center. Little bit of this shredded cabbage or lettuce. Bit of tomato. And then let me grab some of this fresh avocado. Down the center. And then you're just going to fold it up like you would a burrito. Just go in with the sides from the bottom. Sorry, doing this with one hand. And then the sides. And you'll want your tortilla nice and pliable. Don't leave it on the fire too long like I did while you're talking. And there you have it. Turner Burraco. Have a good night, guys.